innovation, design thinking. Can you tell us a little bit about how you use each of those terms and maybe how they fit together?
Sure. It's funny. I think if I asked all of you what you think innovation is, I think I'd get like 300 different answers. Mm-hmm. And I think of innovation as something new. You know it when you see it. And it is something that is new and novel. It may be a different take on something that already exists. It is not the incremental improvement of something that is already there. It is something that's truly novel. And I also think, having been at an innovation company for so long, that innovation is also a process. The sort of process or methodology of the moment is design thinking. And design thinking, for those of you who don't know, is this sort of magical way of looking at the desirability of an object, the financial viability of the idea, and the technical feasibility of the idea. And if you find that intersection, that sweet spot between them, you have something that's really magical. It's something that can make a business, it's something you can build, and it's something that people want. And it is a great set of tools for uncovering what people want and what would be a good business. There is another set of tools that you need for operations and Lean, Six Sigma. A lot of the work that ISPI does points towards that kind of operationalizing of ideas. And I think they overlap, but they are sort of in different realms. So I think of design thinking as sort of the beginning of the funnel, and what are the problems that we're trying to solve, rather than the initiatives that we want to start, or what is the equipment that we want to buy. What are the problems that we're trying to solve? And then a different set of tools, Lean, Six Sigma, there's lots of other ones, decision analysis, and those help you implement those things and get them into the organization so they become just part of how the engine runs.
Any other thoughts on that from Pam?
Yeah, I think that was great.
Well done.
What he said.
All right, done.
Yeah, I mean, the litany of tools are as only good as the tradesmen using them. And I think that's we have a collection of extremely sharp, talented, driven folks in this room today with a phenomenal toolbox that they're building, even more this week at the conference. The end is learning to use those tools in the construct of the business you're working on. It is a key element moving forward. You can be the best carpenter out there, but if we're building naval ships, you're not in demand right now. And so positioning yourselves to use the tools in a real systems manner is really the task that you all have in front of you right now.
So, innovation, big ideas, many ideas. And I'll just throw this out to the group. I'll let you all dive in however you'd like. But you think it's possible, maybe two questions here kind of overlap. One, do you think it's possible to generate too many ideas? And once you have this big basket, how do you narrow it down without demotivating many of the people that contributed to the basket?
I'll tackle that. Former colleague of mine who actually started IDEO, David Kelly, said, if you want to have a good idea, have a lot of ideas. And most of them are going to be throwaway. They're not going to be very good, and that's okay, because you can take a really bad idea and build on it. There's a sense of ownership that comes when there is not a culture of openness. You come up with your precious idea and you present it, and if it lives or dies, that's sort of your ego that gets stepped on when that happens. And instead, I think when you turn it around and you say, you don't say that's a terrible idea. You say, yes, and what if we did this with that? And you build on that idea. Everybody feels like their fingerprints are on the idea. And so you can gradually take a lot of ideas and you can bucket them, you can condense them, you can have people still engaged even when their original idea maybe didn't make it, but they've added something to somebody else's idea. And that's that process of sort of building by, in some ways, by consensus, but everybody feels like their fingerprints are on it. And it's a wonderful way to keep people engaged. And it's and that culture of failure is an option, failure is okay, is a wonderful way to build on those ideas.
And ideas like that, I mean, one of the best examples of watching the co-creation of multiple ideas is actually found on the improv stage. And we're blessed to be in Chicago to be able to go watch improv at Second City with some of the best in the business. So the future Saturday Night Live cast is who we get to watch. Right. And their ability to create a brilliant system of schema based on just random ideas that actually come together as one image is a great metaphor to what you're talking about.
Yes, and.
Yes, sir.
And I'd say, just to build on that, in our organization, one of the words that, for us, probably this may not be sensitive to all organizations, but one of the words that's sensitive to our organization is the word failure. And we're trying to get people to stop using the word failure and to use the word learnings. And what we do with ideas is we try to make sure that when somebody is bold enough to come up with an idea and then go out and try it, what we're trying to do is recognize the effort and recognize the courage that people have to do that. And one of the ways we did this is our CEO, in his last year's town hall meeting, he has a big town hall meeting every year with all the employees, and those that are not in Houston watch it on video. But we celebrated innovative ideas, one of which did not end up being as successful as they had hoped, but it was a learning. And so he made sure that we recognized that, that one also.
That's fantastic. Well, let's focus on your two industries for a minute. Pretty highly regulated. So where is the bridge between innovation and operations?
I'll take the first shot.
Okay, good. You may be more regulated even than I am.
Yeah, the bridge looks like something that's crossing a river in the Amazon. To be quite honest, it's a little rickety. In all honesty, in order to keep up with the pace of a changing regulatory landscape, whether it be the FDA in the United States or ministries of health from around the world, you have to become creative and innovative to keep up with the changing demands of, for example, a lot of the products we transfer, we ship, need to go at certain temperatures, and they're narrow margins, and so they call that cold chain. The cold chain shipment of temperature-specific products from our facility in Ireland to very warm places in India. The technology of not only making that happen, but then being able to demonstrate that it happens to the agency requires creativity, innovation, and partnerships with any number of folks so that you get what you need. The other is it's a juggling act between balancing compliance as a tax. It's something you do and you get nothing else except the sanity that you have a checkbox, and so if someone checks your report card, you got it. As to compliance as a competitive advantage, and it's the compliance and quality as a competitive advantage where it partners with innovation, because you're doing it for the right reasons at the right time to meet your overall business driver.
Fantastic.
I would certainly agree that regulation can drive innovation. And in the oil and gas business, the regulation that we deal with is mostly around air, water, how we construct our wells, how we perform some of our completion activities. And for us, we have a huge operation in the Permian. We have 12 gas processing plants. We have over 20,000 wells. And what our organization is trying to do, and they've had quite a few successes with this, is to, as you were saying, Tim, is to think ahead and to try to get ahead of what the regulations will be, because if you can do that, and if you can envision, put yourself in we live here, these are communities we all live in, and we know what we want our environment to be. So if we think ahead and think 10 years from now, 15 years from now, what is it really that I want our children, our grandchildren, what kind of world do we want them to live in? So what is it that we need to be thinking about now that could ensure that we're minimizing the impact, and not only minimizing, but maybe coming up with ideas that actually help. And so some of the things that we're trying to work around is trying to use the water that we produce from the ground, trying to clean it up to help the farmers use the water. And that's something we started looking at California before we separated that business from our company. But the same thing will apply in the Permian. At some point, we're going to be in another drought situation where it's important for us to be able to reuse our water, and to think about if you're living there, what's important to you. And so I think that's driving more innovation in the oil and gas industry than it ever has before.
Do you have any thoughts, Andy, on that dynamic tension, I'll call it?
Yeah, design loves constraints. Everybody loves to talk about a white sheet of paper, let's blue sky it. But actually, it's very hard to come up with innovations and new things when you don't have constraints. And some industries and some problems are more constrained than others, but constraints are simply a fact of life, and they're things that you work with, they're things that you work around. Some of them are you impose upon yourself, the way that you want your company to operate, the kinds of businesses that you're willing to engage in, and some of them are external. Sometimes it's regulation, sometimes it's just changing market, sometimes it's trade agreements. I mean, all sorts of things can be constraints, and the fact of life as creative people, as we all are, is that we have to live within constraints. So, and I think that's fine. And I really like the idea, too, that you are looking down the road and sort of getting ahead of the curve. There are examples in healthcare. We all have heard of fee-for-service. You go get a test, and there's some money that changes hands. And increasingly, that is changing, partly because of the Affordable Care Act, but lots of other forces are at work to change that from fee-for-service to sort of population health, and you manage the health of a population aggregated. And those are things that are coming down, and there are some clever companies that are trying to sort of stabilize themselves in this coming world. If you don't do that, you're going to be in a world of hurt. So I really do like the idea that you can live with the constraints and sort of foresee some of the constraints that are going to come upon you.